Energy fatigue presses down on the body like an invisible weight, a relentless force that drains every ounce of vitality until movement itself feels like an act of defiance. You wake each morning to a heart that pounds with the effort of simply existing, to limbs that tremble under the burden of invisible chains. It's as though every emotion you've harbored, grief, anxiety, regret, longing, has coalesced into a dense fog that seeps into your bones, robs your breath of warmth, and dulls your senses to the world's natural rhythms. This exhaustion is more than mere tiredness. It is a profound depletion, a cumulative toll taken by the mind's relentless churn of worries and the soul's unspoken pleas for release. When sorrow lingers unresolved, it collects in the body like stagnant water in a flooded basement, seeping through cracks in your defenses until you can no longer escape its moisture. Anger, too, though fiery at its birth, cools into sludge that sticks with you, weighing down your chest with an unshakable heaviness. Fear twists your muscles into knots, leaving you perpetually braced for threats both real and imagined, never allowing a moment's rest. As these emotional burdens mount, the body retaliates. Sleep becomes fragmented, punctuated by dreams that echo daily anxieties and nightmares that magnify them. Appetite wanes or surges unpredictably, a silent cry for comfort in the face of an unending internal siege. Chronic pain, once occasional, becomes a constant companion, aching joints, tension headaches, tender muscles, manifestations of the tension you cannot unweave. Even the simplest tasks, lifting a glass of water, climbing the stairs, engaging in conversation, demand heroic effort. Yet energy fatigue is not merely a tale of collapse. It is a story of survival. It reveals how closely intertwined our emotional landscape and physical vessel truly are. Each tear shed, each panicked heartbeat, each stubborn fear leaves an imprint upon our flesh. The body remembers what the mind struggles to process, storing memories of pain and sorrow in the very architecture of our cells. And so, when emotions remain hidden or unacknowledged, they press outward, calling attention to their presence through fatigue, through pain. Recognizing this connection offers a path toward healing. Acknowledgement softens the weight. Naming the feelings that have taken root can begin to dissolve their grip. Gentle movement, stretching, walking in nature, can coax the body into releasing tension. Mindfulness and breathwork become lifelines, anchoring us in the present and granting respite from the whirlwind within. Compassionate support from others illuminates a path through isolation, reminding us that burdens shared do indeed feel lighter. In the end, energy fatigue is a testament to our humanity, a reminder that we are not just minds adrift in abstract thought, but embodied beings whose hearts and bodies echo every emotional pulse. To honor this truth is to reclaim our strength piece by piece, breath by breath, until weight gives way to lightness once more. Suppressed stress seeps into every fiber of our being, embedding itself deep within the cells as though writing an indelible script on the very blueprint of life. When worries remain unspoken, when anxiety is folded inward and resentment locked behind polite smiles, these unvoiced burdens don't vanish, they infiltrate. They slip past conscious awareness and settle in the cellular terrain, altering the delicate alchemy that sustains our health. Within each cell lies a network of mitochondria, tiny powerhouses that convert nutrients into the energy our bodies need. Under the siege of chronic suppressed stress, these mitochondria falter. Cortisol and adrenaline, the body's natural alarm bells, linger long after the moment of perceived danger has passed. They trigger an upsurge of free radicals, unstable molecules that damage cell membranes, proteins, and DNA. Over time, this oxidative stress accelerates cellular aging, undermines immunity, and sows the seeds of inflammation. Inflammation, once a helpful response to injury, becomes a misdirected force when left unchecked. Cytokines, chemical messengers of the immune system, are released in response to persistent emotional distress. They instruct white blood cells to attack perceived threats even when none exist, leading to muscle pain, stiff joints, and a general sense of malaise. Ligaments and tendons, strained by tension held in the shoulders and jaw, complain in creaks and pops, while the gut, tightly wound by worry, rebels in cramps and irregularity. At a genetic level, suppressed stress switches on certain genes and silences others, a phenomenon known as epigenetic modification. This shifting gene expression can predispose us to chronic illness, heart disease, diabetes, even certain cancers, long before any clinical symptoms appear. Our bodies become more than mere vessels for emotions. They become living archives of our psychological experiences. But the story does not end in cellular decay. Recognizing how deeply stress has woven itself into our cells offers a path to reclaiming health. Each conscious breath, drawn with intention, floods cells with oxygen, supporting mitochondrial repair. Movement, whether a gentle yoga flow or a brisk walk, promotes lymphatic drainage, helping to clear inflammatory debris. Nutrient-rich foods, antioxidants like berries and leafy greens, become allies in the fight against free radicals. Most profoundly, naming the stress, speaking truths to trusted friends, journaling late into the night, or seeking professional guidance breaks the spell of suppression. As emotions find expression, as tears and laughter both are allowed their place, the cellular imprint of stress begins to fade. New patterns of gene expression emerge, and inflammation subsides. Mitochondria regain their vigor, rekindling the spark of vitality. In honoring the physical consequences of our emotional lives, we recognize that mind and body are inseparable. Suppressed stress may burrow into our cells, but it is through awareness, movement, nourishment, and connection that we can excavate it, cell by cell, breath by breath, restoring balance from the inside out. Trauma is not merely an event of the past, it is a living archive inscribed deep within the body's tissues, muscles, and neural pathways. When overwhelming experience exceeds the brain's capacity to process or integrate, the unassimilated fragments of fear, helplessness, or pain cannot be filed away neatly in memory. Instead, they lodge themselves in the somatic landscape, embodied echoes that may ripple outward as chronic tension, visceral pain, or dysregulated physiology. This is the core insight of "the body keeps the score." Our bodies remember what our minds cannot fully bear. In the aftermath of trauma, the autonomic nervous system becomes perpetually primed for danger. The fight-flight-freeze response, once adaptive in moments of acute threat, shifts into a chronic state of hypervigilance or, conversely, collapse. Muscles remain clenched even when no immediate peril exists. Breathing becomes shallow and rapid. The heartbeat thunders in the chest, as if reliving the moment of crisis. Over time, these patterns become ingrained, muscular armor that protects against perceived threat even when the threat has passed. Neurologically, trauma rewires the brain's circuitry. The amygdala, the emotional sentinel that detects danger, grows more reactive, while the prefrontal cortex, responsible for regulation and reason, often loses its ability to exert calm oversight. Memory centers like the hippocampus may contract, impairing the nuanced recall of context and chronology. What remains are fragmented sensory impressions, flashes of sound, smell, or bodily sensation that can erupt unexpectedly, as if the body itself is shouting reminders of what the conscious mind strives to keep hidden. Physiologically, these embodied memories manifest in myriad ways. Chronic pain syndromes, back pain, fibromyalgia, pelvic pain, often lack clear medical etiology, yet correspond closely with sites of held tension. Gastrointestinal disorders such as irritable bowel syndrome or chronic indigestion can be traced to dysregulated gut-brain signaling in the wake of trauma. Even the immune system may mount unwarranted attacks, leading to allergies or autoimmune conditions, as the body misreads its own cells as threats. Yet this dark archivist function of the body also offers a pathway to healing. By attending to bodily sensations rather than bypassing them, we begin to loosen the grip of trauma. Somatic therapies, such as sensorimotor psychotherapy, EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, or TRE, tension and trauma release exercises, invite the body to renegotiate the held response, to discharge pent-up energy through guided movement, breath, or bilateral stimulation. Mindful awareness of bodily states, scanning for areas of constriction or numbness, cultivates the capacity to witness without becoming overwhelmed. Furthermore, compassionate presence, whether in the form of a therapist's attuned listening, or the comforting warmth of a supportive community provides the safety needed for the body to unfurl its protective coils. As trust in the self and others is rebuilt, the autonomic nervous system can gradually shift from siege mentality into restorative states of rest and social engagement. In honoring the body's fierce fidelity to lived experience, we recognize that trauma's imprint is not a personal failing, but a profound testament to resilience. Every muscle that has held its breath, every heartbeat that raced in alarm, each tremor that signaled suppressed terror, all bear witness to survival. Through patience, somatic attunement, and relational safety, the archives of trauma can be gently decoded and rewritten, allowing the body at last to remember not only threat, but also the possibility of ease, connection, and renewed aliveness. Unspoken truths carve caverns of tension beneath the skin, where every withheld confession, every quieted cry becomes a seed of illness. When we swallow the jagged shards of our own reality, refusing to speak what aches within, those sharp fragments embed themselves in our tissues. They lodge in muscles that clench in silent protest, in organs that revolt against the weight of secret burdens. At first, the body sends subtle signals, a pang of heartburn after a joke that pinches at guilt, a twinge of neck pain when memories tug at the edges of our awareness, a cycle of restless nights when the mind circles back to unsaid words. But as truths remain locked behind closed lips, the whispers escalate into roars. Chronic headaches drum insistently at the temples. The chest tightens into a vice, making each breath a small battle. Digestion falters, rebellions of cramps and nausea marking the tension held in the belly. Science reveals how emotional suppression rewires our physiology. The hypothalamus, that deep-seated regulator of hormones, responds to psychological stress by releasing cortisol and adrenaline, chemical messengers designed for fleeting threats, not lifelong burdens. When truths are stifled day after day, those messengers flood the body without pause, stirring inflammation, impairing immunity, and destabilizing blood sugar. Over months and years, this cascade can manifest as autoimmune disorders, hypertension, or even unexplained chronic pain. Yet the connection between unspoken truths and illness is not a cruel accident but an urgent signal. The body, incapable of speaking in words, resorts to visceral languages, the hollow ache in the gut, the tremor in the hands, the fatigue that no amount of rest can soothe. It is as if each cell convenes in a silent council, demanding attention for the truths the tongue refuses to release. Healing begins the moment we honor our own voice. Speaking, even in whispers to a trusted friend or murmurs in a private journal, begins to unchain the imprisoned fragments. As words find air, muscles unclench. As confession meets compassion, the flood of cortisol recedes. Breath deepens, digestion steadies, and feverish tension cools into gentle warmth. To speak our truths is not merely catharsis. It is an act of radical self-care. It teaches the body that it need not stand guard against invisible foes, that it need not endure the slow erosion of silent wars. In the space where unspoken words once festered, health can grow, one honest syllable at a time. Wearing a mask may protect social conventions, but it exacts a toll on the body's nervous system, an invisible siege that over time can erode health from the inside out. Each time we force ourselves into a role that clashes with our true feelings, projecting confidence when we quake with doubt, smiling through inner turmoil, suppressing the tremor of grief, the autonomic nervous system braces for a threat that isn't external but self-inflicted. Inauthenticity triggers chronic activation of the sympathetic alarm system. Heart rate rises ever so slightly. Breathing grows shallow. Muscles hold a secret tension. At first, these shifts are subtle, a tightening across the chest during a polite conversation, a knot in the throat when forced laughter rings hollow. But wearing a mask day after day, encounter after encounter, these small activations cease to reset. The body learns that vigilance is permanent. Meanwhile, the parasympathetic rest and digest branch, responsible for repair and regeneration, becomes muted. We lose the slow, nourishing breaths that calm the heart. Our digestion grinds to a halt under unrelenting stress. Sleep becomes restless, haunted by dreams of exposure and failure. Cortisol levels remain elevated even in quiet moments, fueling inflammation and disrupting hormonal balance. Over time, this chemical cascade can manifest as chronic headaches, gastrointestinal upset, insomnia, and a pervasive sense of malaise. Neurologically, the prefrontal cortex, the seat of authentic self-expression and social attunement, grows fatigued. As we monitor every word and gesture to maintain a facade, cognitive resources drain away, leaving us more easily overwhelmed, less able to solve problems or connect meaningfully with others. The amygdala, hypersensitized to potential missteps, sets off false alarms, making ordinary interactions feel fraught with danger. Emotionally, masks starve us of genuine connection. Each time we mute our truth, we deny ourselves the relief of being seen and understood. Isolation deepens beneath the veneer of sociability, and without authentic exchange, the nervous system's natural social safety signals, oxytocin release, warmth in the chest, the softening of muscles, fail to occur. We remain trapped in fight or flight, even in safe company. Healing from mask-induced collapse requires radical authenticity. It begins with small acts of truth, allowing a pause before responding, admitting uncertainty, letting a quiver escape in laughter or tears. Breathwork practices, extended exhales, gentle diaphragmatic inhalations invite the parasympathetic system back online. Mindful movement, whether in yoga or simply walking with intention, dissolves muscular armor built by years of pretense. Most importantly, authentic expression rebuilds social safety. By sharing honest feelings with trusted listeners, we retrain the nervous system to recognize true allyship. The heart softens, the gut relaxes, and the mind finds space to rest. Over time, the collapse induced by masking gives way to resilience, a nervous system that can flex and recover, anchored not in the exhaustion of performance, but in the liberating power of genuine self-presence. Always having to be strong is a weight that settles into the tissues like a constant, unyielding load. From the outside, it looks like resilience, steady shoulders, a calm voice, unwavering determination. But underneath, the body is engaged in a perpetual struggle to uphold an impossible standard. Muscles remain subtly braced, the breath never quite full, the heart perpetually primed to outrun any sign of falter. Over time, this unseen tension becomes chronic, fracturing the delicate balance between effort and ease that sustains health. When we insist upon strength at every turn, suppressing tears, glossing over pain, swallowing doubt, we activate the sympathetic nervous system as our default. Cortisol and adrenaline drip continually into our bloodstream, energizing a body that never truly rests. Nighttime downshift becomes a myth. Sleep is punctuated by flashbacks of yesterday's challenges and anticipatory anxiety for tomorrow's. The parasympathetic counterweight, our rest and digest system, loses its voice, and with it, the deep restorative processes of repair, digestion, and immune regulation are weakened. Physically, the signs of this chronic burden manifest as low-grade inflammation, tension headaches that crown the skull like an iron band, and a niggling tightness in the chest that betrays a withheld sigh. The gut, sensitive to each surge of stress hormones, rebels with indigestion or irregularity. Even the simple act of greeting the day can feel like forging through molasses, every movement requiring more effort than it should. Yet letting go of the need to be unbreakable can itself be a radical act of healing. When we permit ourselves to soften, to admit fatigue, express vulnerability, to ask for help, our bodies receive the signal that the all-clear has sounded. Breath deepens, inviting the parasympathetic system to resume its vital work. Muscles unclench, easing the knotted currents that once coursed through our fascia. Cortisol levels fall, and with them the tide of inflammation recedes. Releasing the chronic weight of always strong not only feels like relief, it transforms physiology. Sleep regains its restorative power, allowing growth hormone and melatonin to orchestrate nightly repairs. The immune system, no longer taxed by a ceaseless stress response, can return to balance, reducing susceptibility to illness. Mental clarity follows. Without the constant vigilance of self-protection, the prefrontal cortex reclaims its capacity for creative thought, problem-solving, and emotional regulation. In the end, strength is not the absence of vulnerability, but the courage to honor our limits. By laying down the weight of perpetual fortitude, We invite health back into the body's architecture, cell by cell, breath by breath, relearning that true resilience shines brightest when tempered by softness, and that letting go can be the strongest thing we ever do. Rest is not a luxury. It is the gentle hand that mends frayed edges, the silent lullaby that sings our bodies back into balance. When we rush headlong through each day, driven by unchecked ambitions and deadlines, we neglect the very foundation that sustains us. Muscles knot, breath shallows, and the mind's once brilliant spark grows dim, flickering against the gale of overexertion. To rest is to honor our limits before they collapse under the weight of ceaseless motion. It is the conscious act of pausing, of closing our eyes, softening our shoulders, and allowing the nervous system to shift from survival mode to restoration. In those moments of stillness, the parasympathetic pathways awaken. Heart rate slows, blood pressure eases, and digestion resumes its vital work. Cells bathed in renewed oxygen begin repairs, inflammation retreats, and the mind finds clarity where once there was only haze. Consider rest not as an absence of productivity, but as essential creative fuel. Just as a field left fallow yields richer harvests, so too does the soul, when given space to breathe, cultivate deeper insight and resilience. Sleep, our nightly pilgrimage into healing, releases growth hormones, balances cortisol, and archives memories with precision. Short pauses throughout the day, a quiet cup of tea, a brief walk in sunlight, a few measured breaths, serve as micro-resets, staving off the mounting tension that breeds burnout. Yet the most profound rest often begins in our permission to stop, to silence the inner critic that equates worth with output, to recognize that our value is inherent, not earned by relentless striving. In practice, this might mean setting firm boundaries around work hours, scheduling true breaks rather than quick checks, and honoring the body's whispered cues, yawns, aches, wandering thoughts, as invitations to rest rather than obstacles to productivity. Heed the message before exhaustion becomes your teacher. Lay down the armor of constant doing, if only for a moment, and feel the gentle unfolding of ease. In the calm that follows, you will discover not weakness, but renewal, a restored capacity for joy, sharper focus, and the strength to carry on with purpose. Remember, the most sustainable power lies not in endless motion, but in the artful balance between effort and rest. Stop before you burn out, and let healing find you. Constant fatigue often masquerades as mere physical exhaustion, but beneath its heavy veil, it can signal a deeper emotional numbness. When we feel perpetually drained, our limbs leaden, our thoughts sluggish, it's tempting to blame long hours or poor sleep. Yet this unrelenting weariness can also be the body's way of signaling that the heart has gone quiet, stifled by unprocessed feelings. Emotional numbness is a protective armor our psyche forges in response to prolonged stress, grief, or disappointment. By dulling the pain, it grants temporary relief, but that relief comes at a steep price. The emotional spectrum narrows to grayscale, and with it, the energy that once ignited our passions and curiosities flickers out. We move through days in autopilot, our smiles mechanical, our engagements surface level. Joy, sorrow, anger all feel muted as though filtered through a fog. Physiologically, the body and mind are inextricable. When emotions are stifled, the nervous system remains in a constant low-grade alert, unable to fully relax. Cortisol stays elevated. Restorative sleep remains elusive. Muscles tighten in response to unspoken tension, and the neurotransmitters that fuel motivation, serotonin, dopamine, drift out of balance. The result is a pervasive lethargy that rest alone cannot dispel. Recognizing emotional numbness requires turning our attention inward. Ask, when did the colors go dim? What last stirred my curiosity or made my heart race? Journaling can help uncover emotions lurking beneath the surface, while mindful pauses, simply noticing bodily sensations without judgment, can reveal areas of hidden tension. Speaking honestly with a trusted friend or therapist invites feelings back into the light, restoring connection to our inner world. Reawakening emotional aliveness also means honoring small pleasures, the warmth of sunlight on skin, the taste of a favorite meal, the rhythm of one's own breath. Gradually, these moments of noticing rekindle the mind-body dialogue, allowing suppressed feelings to flow once more. As emotional awareness returns, so does vitality. Energy emerges not just from rest, but from a heart fully engaged with life's full palette. In essence, perpetual tiredness may be less about sleep and more about a soul that has gone quiet. By acknowledging and gently exploring that silence, we can begin to lift the fog, reclaim our emotional vibrancy, and discover that true energy springs from the rich depths of feeling. Physical sensations are the body's language, subtle signals that something within us is out of sync. When your shoulders hunch without consciously deciding, when your jaw tightens mid-conversation, or when a persistent ache lingers in your lower back, it isn't random. It's your inner life speaking through flesh and bone. Each flutter of the heart, each knot in the stomach, each unexplained twinge carries a message. A whisper of unmet needs, unacknowledged emotions, or values that have drifted from conscious awareness. Imagine tension headaches as your brain's way of urging you to slow down, to notice the relentless pace at which you move. Consider digestive discomfort, not as mere dietary fallout, but as the gut's response to anxiety held too long in silence. Even chronic fatigue can be a form of protest, the body's final stand against an internal dissonance too stark to ignore. In this view, physical ailments are not isolated malfunctions, but chapters in a living autobiography, each waiting to be read with empathy. Learning to listen begins with curiosity and kindness. Practice a simple body scan. Reclining or sitting quietly, shift your attention from crown to toes, noting areas of warmth, coolness, tension, or numbness. No judgment, only observation. As you identify zones of discomfort, pause and ask, what emotion or thought might be calling through this sensation? You might discover that a clenched fist corresponds with unexpressed anger, or that a hollow ache in the chest aligns with unspoken grief. Responding to these messages transforms them from cryptic warnings into pathways of healing. Gentle movement, yoga stretches, mindful walking, or slow dance can release muscular armor. Breathwork, emphasizing long exhales, soothes the nervous system and deepens the mind-body dialogue. Journaling or sharing observations with a trusted friend gives voice to the unvoiced, translating physical code into words that can be held, understood, and integrated. By honoring the body's wisdom, we cultivate an ongoing conversation between spirit and soma. In learning to decode the language of aches and tensions, we realign our inner compass, restoring harmony one sensation at a time, and discovering that true well-being emerges when we listen as much as we act. If you ignore the quiet warnings, aching shoulders at day's end, a throat that tightens without reason, a mind perpetually on alert, your body will eventually take matters into its own hands. Fatigue will tip you into collapse, pain will demand your attention in the form of migraines or digestive distress, and illness will become unavoidable. This is not punishment, but a last-ditch effort by your own physiology to make you stop and listen. Every morning you press snooze, you're borrowing time at the expense of your cell's repair. Each skipped breath, each meal eaten in harried bites, deepens the rift between your intentions and your body's needs. Your heart pounds a frantic beat long after the crisis has passed. Your muscles hold a silent vigil in rigid tension. Your nervous system races even in moments of false calm. These reactions are SOS signals your conscious mind has chosen to ignore. To be responsible for your well-being is not indulgence, it is survival. When the body tightens, pause. Let shoulders drop, breathe in deeply and out fully. Notice the tremor in your hands, the hollowness in your chest, and ask yourself what you have been resisting. Acknowledge that rest is not weakness, but essential maintenance for the machine of you. If you do not act now, your body will force you to slow. Through sickness, through breakdown, through the stark clarity of exhaustion. Heed the subtle urgings before they become impossible to ignore. Commit to small pauses throughout your day, to genuine breaks that replenish rather than deplete. Only then can you reclaim responsibility for your health, steering your life rather than being halted by it.